Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to congratulate the organizers, especially Miguel Valencia, for having organized that first North-South Congress on degrowth. The first North-South Congress. I participated in the first one that took place in Paris in 2002, but after that, I didn't. I followed my own path. I moved to Peru, so my life took a different direction. Anyway, I would like to thank everyone because organizing an event, that first wonderful North-South conference on degrowth is not easy, so congratulations for them. I hope I'm clear in my presentation. Our perspective, our vision of the universe changed dramatically with the new and extraordinary discoveries about the universe that took place during the 20th century. We learned that the universe was expanding. Such observations revealed a universe that's alive and aware in expansion and evolution. And this universe is not a group of objects without life, but rather a whole continuous community that is made up by subjects that create the cosmos. The stage subjects who create the cosmos underlies the live, aware, and evolving nature of it, where non-human subjects, as human subjects as well, both play an active role in the evolution that is happening. Brian Swim, the cosmologist, scientist, and Thomas Berry expresses as this: the story that we know so far for the first time through empirical observation and critical analysis is taking us back to the world of the Renaissance of the 15th century, where an intimate process of all things happened amongst themselves. This world of the 15th century was known as the anima mundi, the soul of the world. It didn't survive further than the 17th century. But in other words, the world of spirits is also beyond the phenomenological world, and it is an integral part of it. That is to say, it is a whole with materiality. This means that we don't speak of such world as a facet of the human collective unconscious mind, like Jung would describe it, or a projection of the internal world of human beings, such as many psychological schools believe. We don't believe that this world expresses some of the facets of social-cultural worlds of human beings in the way in which most of anthropologists consider it. And it is not taken to an environment above nature, an supernatural sphere, as many religious traditions consider it, especially the theist ones. Rather, we speak of the world of spirits as a tangible reality, something that can be experienced. The new cosmological revelations and others of the 20th and the 21st century are calling on us to leave behind our European colonialist mentality configuration that was born with the destruction of the cosmovision of European peasants as of the 15th century. Such a destruction started before the exporting of this colonial enterprise at the end of the 15th century and beginning of the 16th century, with the trading of slaves and the invasion of America. This exporting of a colonial mentality, that is to say, the exporting of coloniality, rejected the world of spirits that were found in those continents as a signal of lagging behind or being inferior, since that was the way in which slave owners, the European invaders, would see the cosmovision of the farmers. Such a mentality was born with the murder of the anima mundi in Europe, and it exported to the rest of the world its view of the world of spirits as an irrational type of knowledge full of superstition and that was lagging. Swim and Thomas Berge say that the world of spirit refers to those dimensions of nature that lie beyond the phenomenological world, but that they are also a part of materiality. In other words, what they're saying is that even though such world is invisible, it is real, nonetheless, because it is one with materiality. In the region of the Amazons, where I spend half of the year, all aspects of existence have a mother or a spirit, a soul that gives life. It has a shape, energy, intelligence, and it communicates itself to human beings. However, those notions quite frequently are considered to be either superstitious beliefs or pre-scientific notions that have been surpassed. They understand the whole differently when we look at them under the light of post-materialistic science exemplified by cosmologist Brian Swimme. And by the way, Brian Swimme is an Indian from the north. Swimme and Berry offer a radically different perspective and vision with what they call the cosmogenetic principle. The first feature of this principle is that the producing powers of shapes are present all throughout the extension of the universe. And secondly, the relationship between such powers is carried out throughout time. For instance, the creation of a star could not have been activated inside the primigenous ball of fire. Only a sequence of coordinated transitions would enable the emergence of new realities. And this is a contrast against an indifferent universe that is in a chaotic or balanced state in which possibilities of having a galaxy evolve in 1 billion years turn out to be meaningless or insignificant. We should remember that this universe was created 14 billion years ago at an order of magnitude that is enormous before the threshold of the 100 billion years, the random figure. The cosmogenetic principle speaks of diverse universe that is aware and relates to others. I cannot explain the details because of lack of time, but it's not difficult for us to acknowledge as particular expressions of this principle, this cosmogenetic principle, the indigenous cosmovisions, and others are non-Western. People who believe of a universe that's full of a diversity of beings or spirits or deities who are aware, who have different identities, and who are interdependent amongst themselves and amongst human beings. So what the new post-materialistic science of cosmology has also shown through empirical observation is that those three aspects of the cosmogenetic principle are also embedded within a universe that is incredibly tuned up for the emergence of structures, life, and sentience. In the theory of orchestrated objective reduction, or because of its acronym in English, the theorist of Sir Rogers Penrose, a physician and mathematician, and Stuart Hameroff as well, they call it consciousness. They call this type of sensitivity or sentience consciousness. Autopoiesis and communion are a part of the cosmogenetic principle, and together they are translated into that principle, and that is what forbids the universe to be just a blur or a shapeless mass, or that it collapses in an inert or dead mass, or that it is fragmented in isolated singularities, due to the fact that, just as Sweeney and Berry claimed several times, we human beings, we were created from this universe, and we are a part of it in all of our dimensions, be it corporeal, psychic, mentally. It would be irrational to consider that human beings are separated from the many other entities that live within it. The forefathers of modernity and Western science, like Descartes, Boyle, and Newton, would claim against a Renaissance perspective upon which the world was alive, had a soul, and all things inside of it, be them human or non-human, were united in a great web known as the anima mundi. This land with a soul was alive, and divinity was pervasive. All of the things, be them natural or human, or created by them, were found connected through the anima mundi, and furthermore, they were sacred because the divinity would be all-pervasive. The fathers of Western modernity, women were excluded by them. And that is why I speak about the forefathers. The natural philosophers ordered their arguments and experiments against the hidden philosophers. The latter were the schooled allies of the oral peasants, especially the midwives and shamans, the so-called witches and warlocks. And at the same time, the new churches, the Protestant and the Catholic Church, mobilized their own inquisitions against the hidden philosophers and their allies and sometimes teachers, the healers, the wise men, the women, the oral peasants from both genders, which were all declared heretical by both versions of Christianity. This last campaign was able to exterminate the so-called witches and warlocks, as well as most of the hidden philosophers. By the end of the 17th century, the notion of anima mundi had been completely contaminated by heresy and superstition. Nowadays, it is only marginalized as a time before Renaissance or exotic ideas of primitive cultures who are underdeveloped. For the fathers of Western modernity, this campaign against the anima mundi was not a secondary act or a minor thing. This was the core of the matter. In reality, it was the only thing where Protestants and Catholics would agree on. The conflict between those two branches of Christianity arose after Martin Luther was expelled from church in 1521, and a rival Christian religion was created, Protestantism. The 16th century saw 8 civil wars in France and the transformation of such conflicts there and in other places. In the War of the 30 Years that covered Western Europe during the first half of the 17th century, and in which more than 35% of the population would die. There was only one point in which those two sworn elements agreed on, and that was the need to eradicate the hidden philosophers and their peasant oral allies, the alleged warlocks and witches. Such extermination started in the 15th century, and it was successfully concluded during the 16th and 17th centuries, known as the time of the burning times. Another name of such centuries is the Age of Reason. This could only have been established over the ashes of the witches and the hidden philosophers. The anima mundi cosmovision clashed against two trends of the times. First of all, the shared belief by Catholics and Protestants that God would transcend this world and it was outside of its creation. For both varieties of Christianity, anima mundi sounded pagan and as a worshipping of nature. And secondly, the cosmovision also clashed against an emerging trend that was transforming the land into a merchandise, a commodity, through what is known as the enclosures. The conversion of the land into a commodity, and with that, labor, was a process that was extremely slow in Western Europe, and it played a fundamental role, core role, along with the mercantilization, the commoditization of capital, the three processes of conversion, of mercantilization that created capitalism. Anima mundi from the Renaissance was a luminous phenomenon that was covered with sacrality. It speaks of an enchanted world. It includes the earth and everything above and around it, animals, plants, rocks, minerals, men, planets, constellations. And since it doesn't include dualism or a division between nature or culture, such an enchantment would constitute a break for those people who wanted to exploit the enchanted world, be it natural or cultural, to make a profit. So the radical separations that Descartes established between res cogitans and res extensa transform everything of what the latter encompasses into a lifeless, non-agent mechanism, no power to act. That was a pre-requirement for the emergence of the Industrial Revolution that transformed all beings into natural resources for the exploiters and their dependencies. When anima mundi died, that's when the scientific revolution emerged. The capitalistic economic system and the anthropocentric pronunciation of Western modernity makes all non-humans to exist with the sole purpose of satisfying a human need or wish. The conflicts that were presented in Western Europe in the 16th and the 17th century created a law of order crisis that was understood as a crisis of certainty. So certainty had to be restored over new foundations, and they ought to be completely separated, isolated from the burning economic, political, religious conflicts of the times. So those new foundations can be summarized by saying that they were made up by the invention of a nature that was completely depleted of any religious divinity, light, or sacredness on the one hand, as well as any other thing which could be called metaphysics, because such a sphere would dangerously conduct to political religious conflict. That is why there was the need to invent a nature that's completely material, without any meaning, without awareness, without agency. And this would also require the assassination of the anima mundi. The invention of the scientific method and the lab on the side of Robert Boyle in the England of the 17th century still prevails in current scientific practices in the academia, and it separated sacred and luminous from a materialistic nature. It also separated a mechanical, inert nature and everything that can be related to the meaning or to the emotion of the soul, the anima. The cosmovision of anima mundi that was shared by shamans and hidden philosophers and peasants had to be destroyed. And its assassination took place in the hands of the inquisitions of the Catholic and the Protestant churches, with the natural philosophers who were later known as scientists. Those practices were labeled forever as malignant, superstitious, demonic, and they had to be exterminated. Believing in that cosmovision, what historians call Irosoism, because it speaks of a cosmos that's sacred and alive, that was considered a regression towards a dark, less enlightened past we should never go back to. We're inheriting this through different religious traditions or through our reductionistic scientific practices. What was forgotten is that Ilosoism had to be replaced with an inert and mechanical nature, a neutral nature for the new solid foundation upon which to recover the certainties that were lost by the wars. The natural philosophers, the future scientists, they require neutral land where religion and metaphysics wouldn't overlap and chaos would be risked in the political arena, something to create certainty upon new pretexts that could only be found outside of religion and politics. And this division, a hidden association of the supernatural and the material, the mechanical, the inert, is still prevailing nowadays and it's become global. Therefore, we're still captive in this regime under the certainty. The certainty that is taught from kindergarten all the way up to PhD degrees, in which religion is about something that is supernatural, non-material, that is placed above a non-aware, dead, mechanic, material something. Those three transformations started in the 15th century, before the beginning of the European expansion, with the trafficking of slaves and the invasion of America in the turn of the 16th century. And after that, colonialism and then globalization. The expansion of this modern perspective grew thanks to the hegemony of the type of education, means of production, global financial system, consumerism, and the technological gadgets. The inheritance of colonial times is still alive in us. We were all colonized by this version of the history that was created in Western Europe. Coloniality has existed ever since in Europe, and it has been disseminated to all parts of the world, and is being propagated by the modern Western educational system and styles. The killing of the anima mundi stripped us of all beings, not only on Earth but around the cosmos, beings who would accompany and with whom we would share. Therefore, we became fully anthropocentric. The only existing minds, the only minds with awareness and agency, apparently. Western modernity has attempted to fill this deep existential gap with a cornucopia that's demanding more and more material goods, saying that with that we will find satisfaction and perhaps redemption if we buy more and more. The death of the terrestrial beings, the destruction of the waters, air, ground, the extension of thousands of species, they're a small price to pay in exchange for the cornucopia of the land, they say. You cannot make a tortilla without breaking eggs, that's what they say. But the sad truth is that this path has led the human beings, or supposedly the developed nations of the world, to be devastated by extraordinary epidemics of all sorts of addictions and mental disorders of all sorts. And for that, our health care system has no effective cure. Thank you.